everybody, and happy Earth Day, or Earth Week maybe I should say. My name is Mitch Lettow. I'm the Stewardship Director at the Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy, which is the organization that owns and takes care of the place where we are today, the Bow in the Clouds Nature Preserve. Now, the Bow in the Clouds Nature Preserve that you see behind me is 60 beautiful acres of wetlands, streams, woodlands, and trails for the public to enjoy. Now, normally this time of year, we would be gathering here on Earth Day in an effort to make the preserve a better place for people and for wildlife, picking up trash, pulling weeds, building trails, all sorts of things. But given the coronavirus outbreak, we're all doing our part to flatten the curve and be socially distant. So we're not having those gatherings as normal. But we thought what we would do is kind of give a virtual experience and keep that spirit of Earth Day alive. So with that, let's go ahead and explore some of the stories, sights, and sounds that the preserve has to offer.
The 60-acre property that has come to be known as Bow in the Clouds Preserve was donated to Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy in 2007 by the Sisters of St. Joseph, an order of Catholic nuns that formed both Borgess Hospital and Nazareth College in the late 1800s. In the early days, the sisters farmed the upland parts of the property, growing vegetables, planting an orchard, raising chickens for eggs, and keeping a herd of dairy cattle, providing much of the food for the college, convent, and hospital. In 1948, they moved the farming operation to another property, and Bow in the Clouds was left to naturalize. Sister Virginia Jones was Bow in the Clouds caretaker for nearly 40 years and remains one of its strongest advocates. A member of the congregation of the Sisters of St. Joseph, she came to Nazareth in 1968, bringing with her a strong conservation ethic rooted in spirituality. She taught biology courses at Nazareth College and developed a natural science major for elementary school teachers, using that beautiful wild land at the back of the campus for field studies. There were so many natural teachable moments there. But there was also a lot of trash there, and vandals had done their damage. Sister Ginny was determined to change all that. She wanted to turn the discarded land into a natural area for the neighborhood and local elementary schools to use, and she succeeded. With the help of a large cadre of volunteers and literally generations of scouts, Sister Ginny worked tirelessly to improve the habitat, trails, and boardwalks of Bow in the Clouds. When asked what she thought in retrospect about the Sisters of St. Joseph donating this beloved land to Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy, Sister Ginny said this.
I was relieved, and so it seemed the natural thing to see, would they be interested, would you folks be interested in taking over this place and maintaining it, preserving it, making it accessible. And so I was delighted.
Sister Ginny and her volunteers literally blazed a trail at Bow in the Clouds, making a lasting impact on the system of trails and boardwalks in their goal to connect people with nature. Since then, Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy has continued that goal by making steady infrastructure improvements. In 2017, with the generous financial support of the Kalamazoo Community Foundation, other funding partners, Conservancy members, and the community, the Conservancy was able to create an accessible trail through the upland area that lets people of all abilities get closer to nature. Paul Eklund, ADA specialist and systems advocate with Disability Network Southwest Michigan, worked with the Conservancy to design the trail.
And the overlook has no steps. It has a handrail that won't block the view from somebody in a seated position like in a wheelchair. And there are numerous benches along the pathways. It made it all very accessible and easy to use. I think there's a lot to be said for that when you go out to these different land preserves and parks, and they make them more accessible so that as you grow older, you can still enjoy the things that you used to do in your youth. I hope that other agencies will take their example and work more toward creating greater accessibility, thus more inclusiveness, so it's suitable for everybody.
So if you come out to the preserve a lot, you might have noticed some non-natural features about this natural area. And I'm actually standing on top of a manhole cover for a sanitary sewer line for the city of Kalamazoo. Because this is an urban nature preserve within city limits, there's urban things about it, this included. And this line is basically coming from the surrounding neighborhoods of around Bow in the Clouds and making sure that those neighborhood sanitary lines stay safe and head to the water treatment center for it to be cleaned downstream. It's not really a pretty story, but in 2011, there was a blockage in this line, and it actually became so bad that the unsanitary sewage came out of the top of the manhole cover and spilled into the wetland just down the slope from me here. It was about 600,000 gallons, and we were really concerned, and the community health authorities came out. They let folks that were downstream in downstream lakes and communities know not to drink the water for a period of time. They were concerned about E. coli, and ultimately the tests all showed up negative. The city came in, they unplugged the line, rushed into action, and it was less than a day then it was plugged. But the real hero of the story was the wetland, because out of all of those gallons of sewage, the wetland cleaned them up. They converted the nutrients, they filtered them out, and no harmful contaminants ever made it downstream. And it's kind of just a great way to show how natural areas function to benefit the community and provide us clean water and keep us safe. And in the coming year or so, you'll probably see some changes at Bow in the Clouds, and we're working with the city of Kalamazoo currently to create a more extensive trail system for everyone to be able to access the preserves, and will also allow city staff to be able to get to these lovely manhole covers and maintain them so that doesn't happen again.
Don't you just love the sound of a babbling brook? I do too. This is Spring Valley Creek and runs right through the heart of Bow in the Clouds Preserve. It's one of the quintessential spots. When you visit the preserve, you have to stop and listen, you have to stop and see how beautiful the stream is. But did you know that it has really high water quality, and that actually that babbling sound is a sign of a healthy stream? Let's go find out more.
All right, so if you look at the underside of this very natural looking brick here, this little critter right here at the end of my finger is called a stonefly. And you can see why they're called that. They live underneath stones, and they're super flat. They're made for life in the stream. So the more hydrodynamic and flat you can be, the less resistance you're gonna have, and the less likely you are to kind of fly down the stream and get eaten by a fish. So these guys are found in high quality streams like trout streams and like the ones you see in front of us, and they're very sensitive. So if the stream quality starts to go down, you will lose these little guys first. So the fact that we're seeing these nifty little stoneflies in here is a sign of a healthy stream here at Bow in the Clouds Nature Preserve. And the reason why it's so healthy is because there is so much natural habitat around filtering all the water that comes into the system.
The first time I went to Bow in the Clouds, it was a warm, sunny spring day. So warm that I was able to take my shoes off while walking on the boardwalk through the marshlands.
What do you see from the boardwalks that you wouldn't get to see otherwise?
Well, it's what you feel more than even what you see. The temperature changes. The air movement changes. You know, the hawks go gliding over the updraft from down in there. And of course you can see lots of even water plants, water striders on the brook. You can see forget-me-nots, stinging nettle if you're not careful. I ended up having a run-in with stinging nettle when I was working on it. All kinds of asters and wildflowers and that kind of thing.
What I have here is garlic mustard. It's an invasive species we have around here in our woodlands, and it actually greens up before all of our native flowers do, and it will crowd them out, shade them out, and produce thousands of seeds per one plant. It's a biennial. It grows in its first year, it has a small little rosette like this. In its second year, it'll bolt up to about 3 feet tall, have little white flowers on it, 4-petaled white flowers, produce thousands of seeds per one plant. That's how it can colonize an entire woodland very quickly. So what we do is we actually pull it out of the ground as best we can, getting the entire root out. And we can either bag it, take it with us, or it was originally brought here to eat. And you can separate the whole root from itself and place it on a compacted trail surface if you don't have a bag with you. Best practice is to take it with you.
You wouldn't be wrong to think that once we protect the land, the best thing to do would be to just let nature be. In a perfect world, that would always be true, but we know we don't live in a perfect world. Our human impact is present in almost every corner of the natural landscape, be it invasive species, fragmented habitat, soil disturbances, or pollution in our waterways. Left alone, many of these places would and have turned into thickets of invasive plants, leaving little native habitat for our local wildlife. But we don't think of this as cause for despair. We consider it as a directive to act. We have an opportunity, even an obligation, to our natural areas to help remove invasive species, restore habitat, and clean up trash. This is what we call stewardship, people looking after nature. We've seen time and time again that these actions really do make a difference. Species can recover, biodiversity can come back, and with that return, also comes beauty and a community of people who are now connected with nature. Possibly the most impactful example of how everyday people can make a difference in natural areas are the Wednesday Warriors, a group of weekly volunteers that have been pitching in at Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy nature preserves for over 17 years. Each week, these adventurous volunteers head to a different preserve in Southwest Michigan, and each week, a different mission, pulling garlic mustard, posting boundary signs, and whacking and stacking invasive brush. In 2019 alone, they collectively spent over 1,000 hours working at preserves, and in the winter of 2018-19 alone, they spent 170 hours whacking buckthorn at the Swan pond at Bow in the Clouds. In 2020, the spring-fed waters of this pond were revealed again, and the rich wetland soil literally exploded in an abundance of wildflowers like spotted jewelweed and gray-blue lobelia. We can without a doubt say that our nature preserves are more diverse, healthier, and more beautiful because of these selfless volunteers.
Sister Ginny's dream of creating an urban natural area where neighborhood kids and families can come to learn about and connect with nature is still alive and growing. From Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy's Hike Our Preserves program, also known as HOP, to the Little Adventurers Club's Tyke Hikes, Bow in the Clouds Preserve serves kids and families from all over Southwest Michigan. But its location, right next to the Spring Valley Center for Exploration, and within walking and biking distance from Kalamazoo's Eastside neighborhood, makes Bow in the Clouds especially important for people living nearby that don't have access to other natural areas. And since 2014, Bow in the Clouds has proudly served as the outdoor classroom for the Eastside Arts and Sciences Experiential Learning, or EASL, summer program.
Yes, this is Sam Lealofi, the Executive Director of Eastside Youth Strong. In 2014, we started a summer STEM science program, and we were studying our habitats and our local preserves and working with the Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy. We were able to get our young people out to bow in the clouds as 2 to 3 trips during our 6-week program. Our kids just loved it. They didn't know it existed, number one, right across from our neighborhood on the east side. And they also were excited to just explore, get their feet in the creek and understand what lives in the preserve. Since then, we've been out there many times, and we love Bow in the Clouds.
All right, well, the sun is setting out here at Bow in the Clouds on this beautiful spring day, and thought we would kind of close by thanking you for joining us again on our tour and sharing our story with you. And in the spirit of Earth Day, we thought we would share some ideas for how you could take action to make this preserve and make the environment a better place. The first thing that you can do is just come out to the preserve. The Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy nature preserves, including Bow in the Clouds, are designed with the public in mind. They're here for you. So it's really important to us that you come out and spend time on the preserve. Consider bringing a friend, bringing someone new, getting the word out, and letting people know that the preserve is here in the community for them too. Another way that you can help is by pitching in directly. As soon as we're able to gather again, we'll start up our volunteer stewardship work days. And our stewardship work days are one of the best ways to connect directly with the preserve, to really make a difference, meet other like-minded people who want to be outdoors and have an impact. And at the end of the day, the preserve will be a better place and you'll feel great about what you did. Next week, we'll be starting a self-directed garlic mustard pull that can be done during a quarantine period that we're in here at Bow in the Clouds. So there'll be signage and you can pull little clumps of garlic mustard just like this to make room for more wildflowers. The last way that you can help is by supporting the Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy. So as a nonprofit membership-based organization, we don't receive any funding from taxpayer dollars. So about 80% of our day-to-day budget comes from the generosity of the community, from memberships and donations from the community. And we have our preserves that are completely open and free. We want to keep it that way. And we've only been able to do the conservation work and what you see here because of the generosity of the community. So if you visited the preserve, if you liked what you saw and you like what we do, consider becoming a member or making a donation. And with that, I think the last most important thing to remember is that individual actions do matter. So as Bow in the Clouds has kind of taught us today through this tour and story, the actions of individual people can make the environment a better place. We have done some things to really harm the environment, but equally we can do a lot to make it a better place, and nowhere is that more apparent than here at Bow in the Clouds. So I think the biggest mistake that we can make is waiting for someone else to make the change instead of us. So with that, once again, I'll wish you happy Earth Day. Thanks again for joining us, and hope you see you out on the preserve sometime.
I think science helps us understand how things happen. I think religion tells us about maybe why things happen. Spirituality helps us experience the happening. I think that our culture has forgotten that or maybe never understood completely that I believe that our God does care not only about how we relate to each other, but how we relate to the natural world. And so to provide a place in the city where people didn't have to go great distances, to reconnect with nature and maybe to remember that covenant and to remember that there's a sense of responsibility that we have then to all of our neighbors, the two-legged ones and the four-legged ones and the winged ones, etc., etc. And I think that anybody who spends any amount of time quietly connecting with the natural world comes away feeling a little bit different, a little more whole.